At this stage, each one of your RI labs have identified salient dimensions, whether it's with regard to HIV/AIDS or with regard to climate variability. So what we're going to ask you to do as individuals in your working group, think about what dimensions you had identified in your context. Okay? And then pick 2 that you thought were the most salient, in the sense that of those 6 or 7, you really liked dimension A and dimension D, whatever they might be. So you write out those dimensions. No, 2. So what 2 dimensions did you find to be the most salient, right, to the resilience of communities and the populations in your study? As individuals, you will do this. So you'll put down perhaps community networks and wealth. Then in the second portion, again as individuals, you'll identify where they found themselves in terms of your pathway. So for community networks, were they an enabling factor? Were they an immediate effect? So that we can better understand. Third portion, explain why you thought that these 2 dimensions, of all of the dimensions that you had identified, you thought were the most salient, the most important. Okay? And then the last portion, again as individuals, do you think that these dimensions that you've identified are dimensions that, given the capacity and the resources available given to you in your labs, that your innovations team can address? And the point here is that there may be certain activities and dimensions that are beyond your scope. They may be very important to the resilience of your community, but perhaps it requires your national government to be able to address. Maybe it requires a regional authority to address, or a global community. So again here, we want you as individuals to think about these salient dimensions, kind of go through this process. And as individuals, we're going to give you about 5 minutes to work this through. Once you've done that, in your working groups, we'd like you to go around and discuss this. So Lakon, you would say, from my context, I thought really these 2 dimensions were the most salient. Here's where they found themselves in the pathway. Here's why I thought that they were really important. And yes, I think that we can address this dimension, but the other dimension I think requires more resources, requires whatever else. And as you go around, you'll be able to share these stories. Okay? That's the first part. The second part, after you've told these stories and where they are, as a group, we want you to tally them. So perhaps in this working group, community networks came up 4 times. Wealth came up once. And livelihoods or agriculture came up 2 or 3 times. So in this chart, it helps us to start identifying across the network what you found to be the most salient dimensions, where they lie in the pathway, and whether you really think that your lab is able to be able to address those dimensions.